All right, hey people, Russ Jensen. So it's about 10 minutes to 3 p.m. on the 23rd of November here in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I want to get back into some of the specifics, understanding what we're doing, why we're doing it. I made a little video earlier about that we're going to be, this whole process is about creating a legal position, a lawful defense, a lawful offense to justify our actions, what we're doing. So we'll be preparing paperwork, court documents, notices. But in order to do that, we've got to understand the materials. We've got to understand the nature of the things that we're standing upon. Now, everybody talks about constitutional law, how it's supposed to protect you. Okay? Question is, how do you get into your court case? Okay, I'm sure a lot of you that have those issues, Native American Church, legal issues with the courts, you can't get that in there. They don't let you talk that kind of language because, number one, the Constitution in and of itself doesn't specifically apply to you as an individual member of the society. And we're going to explain that. But right now, I want to go back and touch on just a little bit about why this book, Law of Nations, is so powerful and why it is they absolutely cannot challenge it at all. Okay? If, in fact, we live in a constitutional form of government. Okay? That's part of it too. That's part of what we start challenging their jurisdiction and how we get these things into our cases is asking them specifically, where do you get your authority from? They have to come back and say what? The Constitution for the United States of America. Well, maybe. Okay. You're reading this book, Law of Nations. You need to get a copy of it or get up online. We start with the preliminaries. It talks about what a society is. I'm going to talk about that right now. I'm going to talk about the definition of the necessary of law of nations and what it says. Now remember, people, this is constitutional law. Every word in this book, every word that we're using in our paperwork comes directly out of this book or other sections in your Constitution. It cannot be challenged, period. You understand the power of that? Can't be dismissed. Okay? Can't be a failure to state a claim. Okay? And I'm going to read right here, right now to you why it is that they're bound to it. What it says in this book, Law of Nations, which is constitutional law. It defines your Constitution, starts defining the relationships. So, preliminaries, section 7, definition of the necessary law of nations. We call that the necessary law of nations, which consists in the application of the law of nature to nations. It is necessary because nations are absolutely bound to observe it. This law contains the precepts prescribed by the law of nature to states, on whom that law is no less obligatory than on individuals, since states are composed of men. The resolutions are taken by men, and the law of nature is binding on all men under whatever relation they act. This is the law which Grotius and those who follow him call the internal law of nations on account of its being obligatory on. All right, hey people, sorry about that. I've got to splice this together. My great big Newfoundland Rottweiler, Fukushima, came plowing in here with his little German Shepherd buddy. Anyways, where was that? Was talking about we're in the preliminary section 7, okay, talking about the necessary law of nations. Now we're talking about Grotius, okay, and one of the other things too that we're going to be referencing, I didn't mention the other day in the tools, is talk about Chitty's commercial law, okay, part of the contract law that we're going to be teaching and learning about. And there's an illustration in there about Grotius, who he is, what happened back then, okay, and how this is applicable. But let's go for just a second and take a look at the word observe. Now, here it says it is necessary because nations are absolutely bound to observe it. Now, I'm pretty sure we understand what the definition of absolutely is. We can go look that up too. But if we go look at the legal definition of observe, or even a traditional, it says to what? As a verb, okay, It's an action which is to obey, abide by, acquiesce, adhere to, attend, be faithful to, be guided by, be regulated by, carry out, comply with, conform, okay? Do the will of, execute, follow, fulfill, heed, honor, obey, keep, pay attention to, perform, okay? Furthermore, what? Articulate, assert, express, okay? Communicate, okay? They absolutely are bound by this law, this natural law that's being applied to nation states in this book. And if they're bound to observe those, they can be forced to comply with it, to obey it, to be attendant to it, be faithful to that. Can't they? Now, we go down to the next section, 8, says it is immutable. Since, therefore, the necessary of law of nations consists in the application of the law of nature to states, which law is immutable, as being founded on the nature of things, and particularly on the nature of man, it follows that the necessary law of nations is immutable. That means, people, that the words in this book, the law of nations, it's codifying the necessary law of nations for us, is immutable, cannot be changed, cannot be challenged, period. Section 9, nations can make no change in it, nor dispense with the obligations arising from it. Whence this law is immutable, and the obligations that arise from it necessary and indispensable, and we'll talk about what that is later. Nations can neither make any changes in it by their conventions, dispense with it in their own conduct, nor reciprocally release each other from the observance of it. This is the principle by which we may distinguish lawful conventions or treaties from those that are not lawful, and innocent and rational customs from those that are unjust or censurable. Number 10, society established by nature between all mankind. Man is so formed by nature that he cannot supply all his wants, necessary stands and needs of the intercourse and assistance of his fellow creatures, whether for his immediate preservation, for the sake of perfecting his nature. Enjoying such a life as is suitable to a rational being, this is sufficiently proved by experience. Okay? Hence is deduced the establishment of natural society among men. The general law of that society is that each individual should do for the others everything which their necessities require, and which he can perform without neglecting the duty that he owes to himself. The law which all men must observe in order to live in a manner constant to their nature. I'll touch on this in one of my other videos. I think I took it down, but talking about also, this then goes to the fact of that we have a duty, indispensable obligation to what? Conduct our affairs honorably and trustworthy. Okay? This goes back to what? Understanding what agreements are, and understanding of contract law, because that's how we have to be interpreting our Constitution, interpreting the relationships between ourselves and other individuals in society, and the members, the sovereigns, those other individuals in society that we have given a little bit, delegated a tiny bit of our authority to act in the offices of the sovereignty on our behalf. Okay? All comes down to contract law. Everything's predicated upon contract law. All of your criminal laws, civil law, everything predicated upon contract law. Now, there's a lot of contracts, different types of contracts that do perform different functions, but the basic premise of contracts, full meaning of the minds, and honesty, full disclosure at all times. That's what has to be happening. And also what? Being bound to the terms. You violate the terms, you violate the contract. Okay, it's very simple. Okay? This isn't about a case of specific performance. That's another little thing they've tried to put into place to give themselves some cover. Well, we performed part of the contract. We violated that over there, but the rest of it's still binding. No, absolutely not. Either all the terms of the contract or no contract. Now, as I said, um, and we'll go back, and because I forgot that I took down some of the original videos that I made about explaining that. But my next little video, I'll come back and talk about how the Law of Nations defines for us very specifically the Constitution, what it is, what it consists of, and how it's supposed to be interpreted. And we'll also talk a little bit about what that is, the word sovereignty and sovereign as it's defined in your Constitution. Because once again, the only thing we're using, people, are things that are found in your Constitution, either in the Constitution, that original document that everybody's familiar with, these words here under the Law of Nations. That's it. And the Law of Nations defines these things specifically, and we're doing it from a constitutional standpoint. Therefore, the definitions cannot be challenged. They cannot be misinterpreted. They cannot be changed. Okay? So look up the definition of the word immutable and see what it says. Okay? We start doing our research, doing your homework. Okay? And starting to come to a better understanding of these principles, because they are so powerful for us. And once we have a firm grasp of those, how we can begin to exercise our true lawful sovereign authority to get back in control of our governance, because that's really what this is all about, people. So, love everybody. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.